welcome back to my channel. For today's video I'm going to be doing a junk journal flip through of my completed Junk Journal July journal for 2022. This has been such a fun project, and if you're interested in watching how any of these pages came together, then I'll leave a link down below to a playlist where I did a journal with me for every day of this challenge. I chat through ideas for each of the prompts as well as showing you the process of creating these pages. So my journal for this challenge was A6 size, and I chose this because it's a smaller size and it's a lot easier to do for a daily challenge. I just did a simple binding with I think this is called a pamphlet stitch, or like a figure of 8 stitch. Really simple, but as you can tell, I'll try and film some close-ups as well so you can see, but this got super duper chunky and it's managed to stay together, but it is an absolute beast of a journal. I just about had enough room for all of the prompts on these pages. As I was going through, I was adding in and tipping in some extra pages as well, so you'll see those throughout. But I've got bits coming out the top here. The side is like such a curve, but there's also a tag here coming out the side. But I just really love how this looks, and I'm pleased that it held up and didn't fall apart on me, because I was a little bit worried about that. But yeah, it's a nice sturdy journal, and so I will show you what's inside. So the front cover here, I didn't do anything apart from accidentally spill coffee on this. So this was completely unintentional, but after I'd had the cursed accident of the coffee spill on, I think it was like the second day, it wasn't very soon after the challenge started that I managed to spill coffee everywhere, but I actually really enjoyed the pattern that it came up with here, so I just decided to leave it blank anyway. And then my first page here, so I had a doily, like a paper doily as one of my pages just at the front. So I just did a simple collage onto a tag with some different scraps of paper, and did some writing on vellum with my typewriter, just as a simple introduction to the page. This card here is actually something that I then added into the journal just as a bit of a divider and to add an extra page. And I should have said this was prompt begin for day 1. Day 2 was reinvent, and I think this was a really interesting one in terms of especially junk journaling, looking at how you can reinvent your supplies and different things. So I was creating like a scrappy collage with bits and pieces that were left over like on my desk, like just the piles of things that seemed to build up. So I was creating a collage with that, and then I also used this was actually like a business card thing, but I covered up with white paint. I think you can just about see it kind of here, the text, so I used that as a background, as well as like a envelope here and some of the bits and pieces. So at the beginning I was very much finding my feet in this journal, and then you'll notice towards the end I was getting a lot more comfortable with things, which I think is completely natural when you're starting out on a challenge or into a journal, just sort of finding your groove. But I do really enjoy adding stapled bits and pieces to the edge of my journal, or even just like on random places. I know some people don't like the look of staples, but I love just like randomly stapling something in. It's like really quick and easy. And for day 3 our prompt was layered tag, and in the video I showed you guys I had quite the process with this one. I just worked on this side of the page and this side here because I had a smaller page that was actually a envelope that I'd ripped up, and so I just added my layered tag in here. So it looks very pretty, but it was actually off some packaging that I just cut out the nice pattern and then used that as almost a way of holding together lots of different scraps here. So I've got like some fabric lace and like tissue paper and things like that, and that was my layered tag. I did quite a few different versions of layered tag before just settling on something simple like this, and it's really nice then to add some writing if I want to. And so I just added it into this tuck spot here with a paper clip. And so on this side of the page I ended up just doing a bit of a scrappy collage. I loved this image that I found in an old book, and then also added some detailing with a white pen. So I was just having fun with playing with my supplies each day and seeing where that took me. Day 4 was transparency, and so my interpretation of this was to do a drawing onto some, well, translucent but transparent vellum. So I'd actually taken some sketches that I'd done in a sketchbook previously and traced over them to pop them onto something that was a bit more transparent, and then layered this over some collage bits and pieces. Again, you can see the staples, just adding things in fuss-free. And then I just added some snippets here on this other side of the envelope. The take good care, I thought that was really sweet, and that was actually off a clothing tag. So I kind of made that a bit of the focal point, and it was almost like a nice encouragement as well, with some of this old wallpaper as the background. So really simple, this one. And it's funny because if I'd have done it towards the end of the challenge, I can see how it would have been a lot more different. Like, I would have done a lot more of my kind of coffee dyeing and things that I was doing back here with the paint and stuff. But again, I was finding my feet with this journal and just testing out new ideas and different things. So day 5 was fold out. So I added an extra piece of paper here. This was just from a botanical book, to create like a folded out journal page. Now I actually ended up doing 2 pages technically on this, because this was the fold out element of the page, and so I've included this photo here. I'm not even sure where it came from or where it's of, so if you do know and do recognize where this might be, I'm not sure if it's a painting or something, but I just did some scrappy collage and included a quote here. This was actually the other drawing that I did for this day that I just decided then to bring along into the next day's collage, and included a backing of a label here. This was something that came off something I bought, like a tag, and I just loved the little pattern that was on it. I think I intended to do some journaling on here, so I might come back actually and do some writing on this, because I think I left this space for something. And then I had this piece of brown paper here, and there was this illustration that I had floating around on my desk, and I think I wanted to use it within this main spread. It kind of took over a bit too much, so I just decided to staple it onto here, and I actually really love how the colours go with the brown paper anyway, and so that's kind of a weird extension on this page that happened. So that's kind of the main element, and then with the fold out it kind of created an extra page, and so that's what I've got for day 5. For day 6, the prompt was symmetry, and you could obviously do a symmetrical page for this, but the way that I took the prompt was to pull out a journal that I had been working on previously in May for the Get Messy May challenge, and I loved one of the pages that I did in this. I think it was back here somewhere. And so it was this page here, and I really loved the coffee dyeing and the white paint, also some of the stitching, and just like the main focal image. So what I decided to do was take symmetry to mean taking inspiration and like copying-ish the techniques from this page and translating them over. Now it's not an exact copy, but I still had the symmetry in terms of, you know, a pink botanical illustration, working in some of this like coffee white paint technique that I was working on, and you'll see more as we go throughout the journal. And so that was kind of where I was taking inspiration from. Again, having the little words here as well that you can see that were on here to frame this space, and a writing spot that I need to come back and fill in. I think this was the back of an old postcard as well that I'd used as the backing for this. So for day 7, the prompt was bouquet, and if you've followed along with any of my journal challenges before, you'll know that I love to include a prompt that has something to do with florals, because I love to use them in my journal. And so this was day 7, bouquet. And what I ended up doing, because I had this page that was not a full page, it was something that I tried to include in this journal because I really wanted to work with that. And it's funny because it's a lot harder than it looks to try and work on just this side when you've also got to bear in mind that there will be things behind it. So if you were part of the Junk Journal July newsletter, you would have received this free Botanical printable. These are actually photos that I've taken myself from flowers in my garden, and I decided to fussy cut them out and use these as the focal point for this page. And if you would still like to access this printable, I will leave the link down below, because you'll still be able to sign up and access the free printables if you want to use them in your journal. And so that was my main focal point. But what I really loved about this was, obviously these are really vibrant and bold and not like things that I normally use in my journal. So to have them contrasting with all these browns and neutral tones was something that I really enjoyed. And I also like the way that it overhangs on the page as well, so you can see here that it overlaps, and that's something that I really enjoy with all the different layers. And so then I also just did a Live Life in Full Bloom stamped here on the left hand side, and if you watch this video you'll see how I managed to save this quote. And I was actually quite impressed, because I feel like if I didn't tell you that something went wrong here, you would never know. So yeah, I really love this page. And also the stamping here with the brown ink into the coffee is something that I really love. So throughout this journal, what's nice about these challenges is that I find different techniques and things that I enjoy, and then I can take them through then into my other journals. So for day 8, the prompt was a wallpaper, and this was a really interesting one because at the time the only wallpaper I could find to hand was just this plain wallpaper. So what I decided to do was cut it up into strips and create like a faux wallpaper sample book using different techniques. So the one on the bottom here, I just did some coffee dyeing, added some tissue, and then just did some doodling with a black pen. I also included this piece of tissue paper here as well that I'd coffee dyed, because I feel like when you get some of these books, sometimes there's like little protective sleeves and things, so that's kind of what I wanted to include there, but also to soften the harshness of the black on the page. And then this one was interesting as well, because at first I really didn't like how it was turning out, but I don't think it's too bad once I've added all the details. So this has paint, pencils, stitching, pens. I also added some rub-ons, which I think added some really nice dimension to this as well. And so this was almost like kind of experimenting with using different things on this wallpaper, because it's a funny texture, so not everything sticks to it the way you would expect it to. And then this one here, I just kept it simple with a large rub-on and then some tissue paper and some white pen detailing. And so I just included this, I glued it straight down onto this vellum stitched envelope here, and added some pink washi tape here, another rub-on to kind of carry this across, and I ended up just leaving this blank, and I think I might just leave it as it is. I don't feel the need to add too much extra on there. I feel like there's enough here with these interactive elements. So for day 9, the prompt was clashing patterns. So basically I just decided to try and include lots of different patterns that I could think of. So I had some decoupage paper with some floral print onto it. I also did a layer of stenciling underneath with white paint, so on both sides, and I absolutely love how this turned out on the like the beige paper. The contrast that the white had was something I really enjoyed, and so you'll see that a lot throughout this journal, because I had a go-to set of supplies that I was using during this challenge to make things easier, and I just loved the way the stencils looked, so I just kept using them throughout the prompts, and I was really enjoying it. I also think it looks really nice on the vellum as well. Then I also did some mark making with a black pen. I've got different washi tapes and different scraps of paper and things like that. And then I actually had, I think this was a clothing tag as well, and the brand was Pieces, I think, or it said Pieces on it somewhere, and I just thought that that was perfect for this page, because it was like pieces of patterns almost, so I thought that that was quite fitting. And so yeah, the whole page was basically just taken over by lots of different patterns, and it was a really fun like quick one to do, just to keep doing something every day in my junk journal. Then day 10 was time out, and I feel like a lot of people messaged me saying they were a little bit stumped with this prompt. And so you could take it literally in terms of like, you know, time on a clock, things like that, or you could take it as taking time out with your journal to spend it, you know, doing things that you like, or even using techniques and things like that that are slower and take more time. So that's kind of what I did. So I leaned into stitching and things like that. And so this page is really, really funny because I didn't really like this one, especially when I was starting out with the stitching and things. I really wasn't sure what was going on. I think I've grown to like it, but it's still not one of my favorites. But I had a lot of people say that they liked this one or enjoyed seeing like the stitching technique, which if you're going to do this, it's actually quite hard to do just on paper, because obviously you're just poking loads of holes in it, which is why I kind of stopped and then added in the paint and the pencils. But it was still really fun, and I think because I'd lost my way a bit with the flower, I kind of didn't really, it sounds really bad, like I didn't really care about the page, but that made me just kind of go, right, I don't care, I'll just do whatever on the page. And so then I feel like it kind of loosened me up to just doing lots of different things. This was from a place I'd visited. Obviously they say see you again soon on it. And then I did some like doodling with some ink, scrappy collaging, like lots of different things. And so this I almost took as an experimentation page to try lots of different things. For day 11, the prompt was fussy cutting, and I really enjoyed this one. So I love fussy cutting florals and things anyway, so I decided to fussy cut 2 illustrations here from an old book, and just lay them against some neutral papers, which they had a really nice pop because of the red, and then went in here with just a hand lettered quote and added a little focal point here with some stickers and labels. And then I actually had, this was a like sleeve of tissue paper, so I decided I wanted to use this as like a tip in on the page, but it had a window on the other side, and also the fact that I could put things inside it meant that it would be really nice to do some fussy cutting there as well. So what I did was I grabbed one of my stencils and then I traced inside it with pencil, and then I came in with a craft knife and actually cut these out. And I did originally want to do the entire page, but I thought that might be a little bit overkill to do, and it was taking quite a while to do, so I just decided to do a few. But I just really love the way that this turned out, and then I rounded the corners just because I felt like it. Then for day 12, which looking back is funny because I've actually included something here that says 14, and I feel like I should have included that on day 14, but anyway. Day 12 was dyed, and so what I decided to do was use my coffee dye on one side of the page to create this soft, like almost watercolory background. Did some stamping and hand lettering here, and then this was different like packaging bits and pieces, but I doodled on top of them to create my collage on this side of the page. And I love the contrast between like the softness of the dye here versus, you know, the more scrappy harsh lines of the collage on this side. And so that was what I did for day 12. Day 13 was mirrored, and again this one's really funny because I'm actually not that keen on this because I think I just don't like shiny things, but when the prompt came up that it was time to do mirrored, I really wanted to embrace it, so I decided to grab a tea bag packaging and turn it inside out to get this metallic effect here. And I just went with it and just used the whole thing as my background, and then tried to work in some of my collage elements. Also got this piece of vellum here that I did some hand lettering on with my black pen, and then also my white pen. So I think because I was a bit overwhelmed with the mirrored effect that was going on here, I kept it to one side. I kept it really simple, and I don't hate it, but it's really not my favorite. But again, it's taking the rough with the smooth, with challenges like this, because when it came to day 14 and the prompt was nature, I actually really enjoyed doing this page. So this was just creating on one side. I was using the vellum page, so I decided to stitch a envelope that I had coffee dyed to the vellum itself, and then I also did some little bits of collaging around this, used my typewriter for a quote, and then here that I've got a paper clip holding in was actually a pink clothing tag, so you can see here because I left the writing exposed on the back side should I want to do any journaling, and I just did some collaging over the top here, so different scraps of papers, also some PET tape as well on this, and just created that to go inside this little tuck spot here. It was like the perfect fit, and I just really enjoy the way that this is concentrated just on one section of the page, and this is probably one of my favorites that I had done throughout this challenge. Day 15 was texture, and I also had a lot of fun with this one as well, so I decided to concentrate my efforts on the right hand side of the page because we had the vellum and I didn't want to cover up that see-through element here, because I do like the way you can still see you know, bits of the envelope and previous days peeping through, and I just decided to bring in all different elements that were textured to this. So I've got some stenciling here, bits of a doily, I've added some stitching, some stamping, I've kind of glued my papers on and tried to scrunch them up, I've added tissue, coffee dyeing, and I really love the neutral warm tones of this. So this one was just a really fun page to work on. It's a lot more focused around creating the background, but I feel like this section here, I really love the way that the coffee has kind of interacted with everything, and it was just a really fun page to work on. For day 16, this was one-sided, so I decided to concentrate my efforts onto one side of the page in terms of the collage elements that I was using. It still kind of crept onto this page a little bit, but most of my efforts are on this side of the page, and they're also towards the bottom half of the page as well. So I've not only just done the left hand side, I've also done, you know, left hand side corner and concentrated everything around here. I've got labels where I've just used one side of them, and I've included lots of different bits, so some stamps, some stickers, a quote here that I've written onto some vellum, and I even did some stitching along the bottom here just on one side of the envelope. And stitching was also something that I've been loving to do in this journal. You'll see there's more here coming up. Just really adds a nice finishing touch to certain pages, lots of texture and interest as well. So the next one is day 17, and this was go-to palette. So what I decided to do was I created some washi strips. There's a faux washi tutorial that Rachel over at Roxy Creations, she has a video all about it, and what I decided to do was take that concept and create a couple of these washi strips in my go-to palette, so using the warm neutrals and the pinks, and just adding little bits of collage and stitching to these just to capture my go-to palette in this way. And then all I did was rip out my favorite sections, lined them up and stapled them into this journal page. So this one again is more about technique rather than like an actual proper finished journal page, which it still is, but do you know what I mean? There's no like focal point or anything like that. It's almost a bit like at school where you're kind of you know, told to like look at different techniques and take like copy things down and things. This is just kind of like me gluing in my experimentations into the journal, and it was also fun to work on something outside of the journal and then just like stick it in as an example of what I had done, and I really enjoyed that one. Then on day 18 the prompt was cut out, and so I had some more vellum that I was facing as a page. So what I decided to do was simply cut out a circle in the middle here and use that as a way to layer on top my fussy cut botanical illustration. And I love the way this looks in terms of it kind of overlapping onto the bits where it's not like fully glued down. I just did some stitching along the side for some additional detail, and then a quote with my white pen, which I've been using a Uniball Signo throughout the challenge. Then for day 19, the prompt was tucked away, so I knew I wanted to make some pockets, and I was facing more vellum pages, which I wish I hadn't put so many vellum pages quite so close together in the middle, but it did kind of make me think about different ways that I could be using the vellum. So, you know, here I was cutting it out, and then back here I was just like using one side of it and allowing things to show through. So for this one, I just decided to start ripping it. So I ripped it down the middle and then doubled it up and decided to make that into then like a tuck spot for different bits and pieces. So it's kind of a layered one here. So there's one at the front here, one at the back. I just used a illustration here as a background element because I really loved the colours here, the green and the pink. I included a typewriter piece here and left some like negative space because this was quite bold and busy. And then this is just an altered postcard, so I decided to trim it down around the corners, and then I added some different collage elements here just as a journal card so that I could tuck something into these pockets. For day 20, the prompt was black and white, and at first I really wasn't sure what I was going to do for this one, but I actually ended up really enjoying it. I really tried to embrace black and white and not bring in too many neutrals, and I think I did a pretty good job. So on this vellum piece here, I just decided to straight up do some white paint stenciling and just leave that as a like an interest page almost, so I'm not going to add anything else to that. And then here is my black and white collage, so I've got an old black and white photo, and then I've added lots of different black and white elements. So I've got some packaging working as a background here. I did some mark making, some random stickers that I had. I did stitching, but with black thread as well. It was really nice to have that focus on the colour scheme for this page. For day 21, the prompt was focus, and I just decided to do like a really quick and easy page for this one. So I took it just as using a quote with the word focus in it, and then did a simple collage here, included a sticker as my focal point, added my quote with a black pen, and just called it a day. Sometimes there's just pages like that. I think especially with a journal challenge like this where you're creating, you know, a new piece every single day, they aren't all going to be as intricate and involved as each other, and this is just an example of a really simple, quick and easy page that I did for day 21. Day 22, the prompt was blended, so I tried to create a soft blended background here with white paint and my coffee, also coming in with some distress inks and a sponge to really soften things up. And once I'd created this background, I actually didn't want to add anything onto the top. I just really loved the different soft elements here, so I decided to leave this side, and then I added a tag slash tip in on this side. So this is actually like a little double tag. This I think was actually originally a tea box, and I covered it in some collage paper, added the white paint, the coffee to soften it up, because it was it was a lovely pattern, but it was quite bold, as you can see. Here the colours were really vibrant, so I've softened it down a lot, added this little scalloped tag on top here to add my date as well, and then I just added a simple quote here with my black pen and attached it with some washi tape. So a really simple one again, but it was nice to play around with these different techniques and things in my journal. Now I think this is actually one of my favourite pages in this journal. So the prompt was maximalism, and so I just kept going with adding things to this page, and this is what I mean by things really, you know, developing from further back in this journal, because I feel like you can see the threads of like where I've been trying things out and how they've been you know, inspiring me on the pages as I've developed. But I just really love this page. I don't know whether it's because it's just got so much going on, but at the same time it almost feels like it doesn't. Like, I've got lots of different stamping, washi, little white doodles here and there. I did stenciling, I've got little scraps of paper, there's receipts back here. So I just really love how this background turned out. And then I added my focal image here, this botanical illustration, and I think it's the contrast as well of this green and blue against the neutral just really pops. I thought I might have to like outline it or something, but I think that it works just fine. And then I came in again with my stamps and my sepia ink just to add a quote here on the right hand side in some of the areas where I still had a little bit of a gap. I was really trying my best to fill in the spaces but not go too far. But I think as well it's because I had a lot of fun creating this page as well, which is probably why I look back on it quite fondly as probably one of my favourites of this journal. The prompt was paint splatters, so I just did some diluted white acrylic paint splatters on top of my collaging here. I was trying to use some of the things that I had liked from this page and bringing in more of this like soft white paint to bring everything together, and also the stamping as well, which I think added some really nice detail. This was actually from the second free printable from the newsletter, which again, if you sign up down below, you can still access so that you can catch up in your own time. But yeah, lots of different bits and pieces going on here. I kind of kept to either side of the page now that I'm looking back. There's nothing really in the middle, which is a funny choice. It's probably because there was quite a curve developing on this journal as I was adding more and more in, so it was probably easier to work on the sides. I also had this scrap piece of paper that I had painted for, I'm not even sure what it was, but I just decided to do some stitching and add it in as a little bit of a tab here, just to bring across as well some of the colours to the other side of the page. Day 25 was peaceful, and it's funny because looking at this, I'm not really sure what would strike you as peaceful other than it was really peaceful, like the process to make this page. Like I really enjoyed doing like a nice little collage here with a tag and different bits and pieces. And then I made a pocket here with just a Starbucks coffee sleeve. I stitched around the edges and then made that into a pocket for this tag here. So I just kept it really simple on this side because I did have quite an involved collage going on this side, and I added some ribbon here so that it would poke out the top, because I really like when bits and pieces poke out the sides or the top of my journal. Day 26 was memento, and I think I discussed in the video for this one, I didn't actually have a physical memento, so I decided to use collage pieces that were related to memento, and also spoke about using some Latin phrases and taking things in a slightly different direction, just to show you there's lots of different ways that you can interpret these prompts. So I included little like tokens and stamps, maybe from like Happy Mails when you keep mementos from things, and I just really enjoyed doing this collage on this page. I ended up actually going past the edge of the page here just so that I could have the nice ripped edge and things kind of poking out the sides, which was really fun. And because I had so much going on this side, I kept this pretty clear. I mean, I could come back and add some writing if I wanted to, but I'm not sure that it needs it. I think it's enough just with this side being so busy. Day 27 was stripped back. So this is using minimal supplies or using a minimal layout. So I decided to concentrate my efforts in the first place on one side of the page. I did some large pieces of collaging so that was kept a lot more minimal. I ended up doing a painting and adding some painted details for this page, just some daisies to keep things really simple and stripped back, and then just a typewriter quote here on some vellum. Day 28 was stenciling. So I actually made my own stencil. So I used my craft knife to cut out a like a foliage type design with leaves, and used that as my stencil on different sides of the page. So I mixed together like a peachy colour and also used some white as well for that. And because that was so bold, I then decided to just come in here and do some more detailed stuff with little bits of collage papers, coffee dyed things. I included some details with just some pencil, there's some stamping, washi tapes. I've also stamped the date onto this one as well. I didn't number every one of my pages, but sometimes I felt like they needed something a little extra, and I didn't necessarily want to put maybe a quote on there or something, so I just decided to use my number stamps for that. Day 29 was geometric, so I took my collage and rather than tearing bits of paper, I decided to cut out triangles into this really harsh geometric pattern. I then ended up covering a lot of it with tissue and paint and things like that, but you can still see the geometric patterns in the background, which I think is perfect and works for me in terms of still being true to the prompt, but also bringing it within something that I like and is in my style. I also then added this big piece of craft paper here as well, just for some stamping, because the background was quite busy and I just wanted something bold here so that I could add some stamping. And then this was from some sort of gift card like tag thing that I'd doodled on at some point, and I just decided to stick it in here because it's been hanging around for a while and I didn't know where else to pop it in my journal. And then for day 30, the prompt was favorite quote. So I just worked on this side of the page because, as you can see, the journal was getting really chunky at this point. I did a neutral collage coming in as well with the coffee and the tea dyeing, and I feel like this encompasses really well the different things that I had been experimenting with throughout this journal, and sums up, like, from here you can see the difference between this, and I just really love all the tones that are within this. And then I went over the top of it all with a black marker just for my quote, so I decided to really make that a big bold focal point of this page, especially because I was only working on the one side. And then for day 31, the prompt was farewell. So this is all about saying goodbye almost to this journal, wrapping things up. So I decided to actually create a page that mirrored the place that I had started with. So this was the collage that I did right at the beginning, and so I did another one that was kind of similar but also included a lot of the techniques and things that I had been liking throughout the course of working in this journal, just to show the difference and the development in that. And then because this was only like a really small page, I then also decided to add a pocket here to the back, so I just did some stitching here and included a card here so that I can write down some reflections on this journal and any bits of journaling that I want to include in the end of this journal, just because there wasn't enough room on just this doily. As pretty as it looks, there wasn't enough room at all, so that's why I just decided to add this, and I think it's a nice close to the journal. So that is everything for this Junk Journal July journal flip through. So I hope you enjoyed seeing the full flip through, and if you did join in with any of the Junk Journal July prompts, I really hope you enjoyed this challenge. It's been so fun to share this entire process with you all, and thank you so much for joining in. Thanks for watching this flip through. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.